I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our November 19th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzman. And were there any corrections? Would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman? Yes. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel? Abstain. Dr. Bennett?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Mr. Thompson, would you, well, I think you started first last week, didn't you? Or last month? You don't remember?
No, I don't remember.
You go ahead.
That's all right. I really don't have much to say other than it's interesting to have a 4:30 meeting, but glad for it. And certainly we're glad people are here and get a chance to see Dan Emmett. You know, I was reflecting upon our visit to the high school and then to other schools as well, but certainly is a good thing that we're doing this, and certainly picked up on some things like at the high school, some needs that I think that in a work session we could talk about. But so this is a good thing to do, and I appreciate it. So.
Ms. Regola-Dye?
Thank you and good evening, you diehards, you. Thank you for being here, and we're especially pleased that we're going to hear about the Tiger Pride program. And thank you to the teachers who are continuing working and our staff to make the holiday season a peaceful and a good one for our children. And we look forward to a little break for you. Thank you.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Well, I too join in what two board members have just shared. And, a special thank you for all the staff, parents, administration, students, and community. I think we've had a very successful school year as we just kind of wrap down 2018. I think I want to share that it's just very fortunate that I'm part of this board that really cares for kids. And I'm really thankful for that. And I too just love being in the buildings and seeing nooks and crannies and all the happenings. So thank you for hosting us and looking forward to 2019 and a strong finish.
Getzman?
I'm not sure what is left to say other than welcome. I just wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and lots of family time. And so stay focused. I know these next 2 weeks with all the kids are a little hectic. So all the elves are out and Santa's out and the lists are made. So their focus is elsewhere right now. So best of luck to all the teachers.
Thank you. And I'd just like to welcome everyone this evening and reiterate what everyone else has said. And also, I hope that you will take time to come to some of our holiday programs that are next week and the week after, and concerts. High school orchestra and band concerts are also in choir. So lots of activities. You shouldn't be bored. There's lots to do in the evenings. And again, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas too, and hope you have a safe and a wonderful and restful holiday. So with that, we'll begin our meeting, and we have some commendations and communications.
We do, and we're excited to be here at Dan Emmett and to be able to share this building, but more importantly, what goes on inside the building. And I think there's some neat things that are happening here. And I know Margie Yark wants to share that with us. But first and foremost, we want to recognize someone pretty special, and I'll let Margie kind of take over from here.
She's very special. Yes, she has to come with me. Well, she's actually like a sidekick, so when I move, she moves this way. She has been here for at least 6 years, helping us with multiple things. She is Katie Hayes, and she's at MVNU. She is like our little guardian angel of Dan Emmett Elementary. And I just quickly tried to write some of the things she has organized, or she's my to-go-to person to get this done. Technology for kindergarten, mini iPads, TVs, donation for Chromebooks. I think, didn't we get 6 maybe? This year, 6. every second grader for the last, is it 6 years? I think so. This will be the 6th year, goes to the Columbus Zoo. They pay for busing, they pay for every ticket. And then they present it to us, but because we had that ice day, we couldn't go and pick it up at MVNU, so they all wrote us cards telling us that they are donating their time, many of them come, and also just to get all the second graders to go. So it's awesome. Most of these kids would never get to the zoo. So that leads into doing a lot of different book studies and reports on zoo animals so that they can see what they have. She also, for the last years, has helped with father-daughter dance. They actually take that over for us now. And that's a fundraiser that we also use to help us with our 5th grade. And they come up with themes, they decorate this whole place. It doesn't even look like this when they get done with it. She does a book drive for us. We have plenty of books. She too is the one that got 20-some kids together in the fall to paint our whole playground, to do soffit. We were all up there scraping and painting the whole front of the building. When I walk you through the restrooms at the primary end, you'll see the artwork that they did too, with like be kind and all of these positive quotes. And the lunch buddies, and anything else that I need. If I'm like, hey, how do I could you help us with Tiger Pride, get us volunteers? She's my little go-to person. So we really owe Katie Hayes a bunch here at Dan Emmett, and I just wanted to thank her. So thank you very much, my friend.
On behalf of the Board of Education, we too would like to thank you with just a small token of our appreciation. It takes special people to do special things in each one of our buildings, to take that little extra pride, and it's really apparent you do that here. So we want to thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's an honor to be a part of Dan Emmett. I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything,
Yes, you are.
it's really neat to work with college students, but it's even more valuable to watch them work with kids, especially when most of them, if they're studying medicine or accounting or something like that, they don't get to be a part of the school system very often. And along with raising funds, we do a lot of education on campus about what it looks like in this community to come to school with the circumstances that these students live in. And so it's been a huge blessing to be able to be a part of that. And Margie's crew, I got to know especially the second grade teachers, and they're great, and our students love Dan Emmett, and it's a soft spot on our campus, I think. And it was great to actually bring them here this fall.
That was
have them work on the playground and that. So thank you also. It's a great opportunity to be a part of our community. So
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
We do have a unique opportunity now. Dan Emmett, Margie is going to share, her team is going to share a little bit about their Tiger Pride Club. It's an after-school program. The unique part about our ability to meet earlier today is they're still in the process of having their after-school activities. So we might have a chance here to hear a bit of a presentation and maybe take, the final 10 minutes and actually see what's going on in action. We think that would be pretty special. So I'll pull this up, and you want to just take the presenter?
Yeah. So we were very honored. Once again, we've got a helpful community. The United Way has donated the same thing that they're doing for Eagle's Nest. Well, they allowed us to pilot it. So we're kind of new at it, and we have 40-some children. We weren't really sure where you're supposed to cut it off. Next year we'll know. It probably should be half. But it is going so well. So it's the same thing at East. We start in October, and we're going all the way till April 26th. It's Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 5. Typical days, Tuesday, Thursday, we do tutoring. And then the other half, we do something fun. Now you're going to see CrossFit today, and the other half, they're working a craft, and they're doing canvases. So you'll see part of that, because that's like a stage 3. We've had so many good things happening of this. We've got 3rd through 5th grade. Like I said, there were 43, and a few have dropped out. And, that's all right, because we're trying to still get down. We have a waiting list, believe it or not, to get more great things. They love it. I know the parents love the homework piece, but the kids have had ponies here. We've done, well, let me just show you. Now, Bill, I'm not sure if I'm going to Is there a way I can just fast speed it to the next one?
So just do the right arrow.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where your arrow is. I put it on present.
You just
Oh, there you go.
There it is. This one, right?
Actually, yeah.
Okay, so there's the equine care. Joey, oh, whoa, it's going fast.
Might
Sam
just wanna-
Schumann actually came, and he was singing, and to be honest, the kids said when they got their CD, they go, "We got this from a famous person." And he, of course, being a kid, loved it as much as the kids loved it. So we have, and I'm just going to show you a few. We've kind of put some, we do STEM activities. You can see we did the cup challenge. If you follow us on Twitter, you will see I'm pretty good at getting something every week. So just follow us and you'll see a ton of great stuff. A lot of good problem solving for the kids. We do a lot of, oh, here we are, karate with Jay Mahan. They loved it. We actually are going to have Dave Lashley come and do another version. He's going to do, I think, jiu-jitsu. So, got lots of different community members. Dr. Page, she's a veterinarian. Actually, that was fresh cow right there. We were talking about hearts. There was only one child that did not, with gloves, want to touch it. But we first were listening to our hearts, how they beat, what happens. Then they were able to look at it and the lungs, what happens. So it was really cool. We always try to do something academically. We do have SNAP Ed, and if anybody knows Tanner, he goes into most schools all the time. He's our every Tuesday. He's just every Tuesday, so you could see that was a hummus that they made with some celery. And they make they do the ingredients is they get the recipes and they eat it. So tutoring, always on our Tuesday, Thursdays, we do tutoring. Zumba, we've had Zumba with, I don't know if you've heard of Lisa Davis and then Teresa, they came. Goats came from the Roogieback farm. And it's interesting how many kids really don't see animals. And we had carrots for them to learn how to feed. The goats were pickier, they didn't want them. Social emotional, we do a lot of social emotional. We are shocked and surprised how many kids don't do the basic of playing board games. So if any of you ever have any old board games you don't want, we'd love to have them, because I don't know if you've noticed, if you buy them now, they're really not made well. They don't last long at all. So it's great skills for these kiddos, and I think that's our last one. But if you don't mind, if we could take a little break, and then we're going to see two groups. You're going to see the 4th and 5th finishing their Canvas. It's a 3-day project, they're on day 2. And then 3rd grade is in our CrossFit. If we could just go see that.
Yes, ma'am? Right here? What did you find? That's pretty good. More orange. And she said she did. Well, you have to start. You're welcome. It's coming out. There you go. All right, come back up here. So let's get into do you want some orange?
Have shown some improvement in any academic level or physically.
2 days a week, Mary, I know for a fact they're getting their homework done.
There you
And that's
go.
probably the teachers are out there. Is that not true? That's helpful, because I can't guarantee you
That's
that
right.
the other children. So yes, it does help. And I believe we're really getting social skills. We pride ourselves on our PBIS roars, and they will recite it, and you can see all around, you've got the roars. They know what it takes to be a Tiger Pride. They have to have positive roar behavior. And we've taught when we have our audience, they become very respectful, good eye contact, listening skills, listening ears. So well-rounded, but also the academic piece.
That's great.
And we're trying to stay away from the computers right now, because we really want to work on our spelling words and our reading. And with 35-minute increments, when they have to read 20 minutes, that takes quite a bit of it. Yes.
So my question would be, when you mentioned the waiting list, is that because volunteers are needed?
Our room, the amount of room, because even in breaking it in, 20 is almost enough for each classroom, that if you get any more to do any kind of projects, it's too much. especially with the volunteers. Now, the Nazarene is very big at helping us, but right now they're on break.
So it's first come, first serve, and
We sent out a letter to all parents 3rd through 4th. I didn't put a cap on it because I didn't know how to decide. I just wanted to open it up to everyone. And we probably got about 50, and then we sent another letter out explaining what it really means, who needs transportation, all of that. I would do the transportation local. If they lived outside where it was the $4.50 each time, I couldn't do that. But if they kind of worked out a deal for us, and it's almost where it's like $1 each way by the time you figure all the kids.
And the funding right now is primarily
All
United Way?
Way.
Okay.
And we do provide snacks, but I just wrote a grant for snacks because we're out of money. Because the transportation for CAT was over $2,000. And that was a lot of our money.
Pardon me, what was that?
I'm sorry.
What is it that you're short of funds on? You were just.
The snacks,
Okay.
we'll get it. Well, somehow I'm doing some grants, and I had someone tell me that he knows a way to go to different businesses and sometimes they donate. So we'll find out.
So the transportation,
The transportation ate up so much of our money because we wanted to have the kids. You can see the yellow, I wouldn't have those kids if I didn't provide transportation. So that was over $2,000, just the
now is
transportation.
that will take you through the end of the year?
That'll take us through the end of the
Okay,
year.
so you're not out now?
I'm not out transportation, that was the first thing we did. I have snacks, so up until June 4th. So we have them through there, but we'll find it. We have a lot of community members, I don't know, well, you'll see it on the board that we just had an anonymous person donate over $1,000 in sweatpants for our kids here. I kept getting them, and Corey's like, wow, you must have done early shopping. I go, I haven't even started. And she kept bringing these bags from Gap in here. Well, then she also wants to get us boots and sneakers. So we did a list, and teachers, there were at least 50 plus kids. She just gave me and sent an email back today. She ordered them all. So these teachers don't even know that. She just ordered all of them, anonymous. So it's amazing. So Corey, I'll be getting lots of boxes and packages because you're talking, some put shoes and boots. So I bet I'll get 100 pair of something coming in soon. It's amazing. So I'm not worried. We'll feed them.
Good for you. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll see our student government
Yeah, I don't
liaison.
see who was called. I saw,
So, with the early meeting, she wasn't able to make it.
okay.
Okay.
Did you have anything you wanted to share?
We're out here, ready for break. Trying to make it just next
Looking
week.
forward to it, right? Okay, and there was any public
I
participation?
didn't think so.
Okay. Items for information, none. No additions, deletions. We're up to superintendent's report.
Well, thank you. I have a number of items for information, actually 5, kind of just to get this meeting started. Item number 1 is just suggested board meeting dates for 2019. As you know, we'll have to have an organizational meeting in January. And so if you open up that link, it presents some sense of guidance as to dates coming up. We'd like to have our organizational meeting on the 14th of January. It'll be at Twin Oak Elementary. That's where we're at in the month of January. When we have an organizational meeting, we generally start at 5:30, and then we finish up the organizational part, take a few minutes break, and then we'll start the regular part of our board agendas at 6 o'clock. We do have a snow date, providing, you have to almost plan ahead, and one of the reasons we're really planning ahead there is in a public organization, you need to have your organizational meeting by January 15th. And so the 15th is permissible. So in the event that something would happen on the 14th that we couldn't meet, then we would meet on the 15th, which would be a Tuesday. And we would really need to try to get that organizational meeting in by then. The rest of the dates are really listed as we signed up for them. You'll see in February, we'll be at the middle school. In March, we'll be at Columbia. In April, we'll be at Pleasant Street. And then on May 20th, we'll be back at Twin Oak just because it's a very nice place to have retirement kind of reflection and those kinds of things. And then we'll be back to the Board of Education office in June July, and August. So those will be there for your review. We do have an expiration of term of office letter. You can take a look at that. The Knox County Career Center, we have 3 board members who reside on that board as well, representing Mount Vernon City Schools. And they all 3 are on 3-year terms, and so they kind of progressively rotate. Dr. Bennett's term is up this December 31st, and we have a desire for her to continue in that role, and she has graciously said she'd love to continue in that role. But that letter was there for you to take a look at. If you're curious, next year, I think, Jody, you're up, and then Steve's the following year after. And we'll just kind of progress each year as we go. Item number 3 is the school calendar for 2019 and 2020. We have met with our MVEA and some preliminary conversations with OPSI. I'm going to share a quick little PowerPoint with you because by law we have to have a public hearing and review of the calendar, and then 30 days later then we can approve a final calendar. And so it is linked to your board agenda. I will put it in presentation mode here for you. And so this really acts as our first calendar hearing review. There is a legislative requirement, at least 30 days prior to adopting a school calendar, the board must hold a public hearing on the calendar addressing topics that include but are not limited to the total number of hours in a school year, length of the school day, beginning and ending dates of instruction. And so that's why we're here. So again, just a real quick required piece here. We've converted the days to hours some time ago, but there are requirements. At grades K through 6, you're required to have 910 hours of instruction. Grades 7 through 12, 1,001 hours of instruction. There are some deductions. They take some of those hours away for parent-teacher conferences and teacher in-service, basically the equivalent of 24 hours there. And if you wanted to back that into days, it's really 2 days for parent-teacher conferences and 2 days for in-service. Our current calendar is 175 student days. So when you take that and you multiply that out by our K-5 student day and our 7 through 12 student day, you'll see the number of hours of total instruction that we currently have. So 1,050 at the elementary levels, 1,107 hours of instruction in grades 7 through 12. What you'll notice is the difference. And so the difference between what the state requires and what we currently have scheduled far exceeds what the state requires. Now, what that allows us then is some of those calamity days that we talk about, those hours kind of blend and meld in. Very, very, very few, I'm not sure if there are any districts that are at the state minimum. We've kind of held pretty consistent with most of the districts in the area to kind of this time frame. So it gives you a sense of kind of the requirements for the Ohio Revised Code. This last year's calendar, our students' first day was August 16th. Teachers' first day was August 13th. Our students' last day is May 30th, with the teachers ending on Friday, May 31st. Our instructional hours look like this. Grades K through 5 are 9 to 3:30, that's 6 hours and 30 minutes. And then grades 6 through 12 meet 6 hours and 50 minutes from 7:45 to 2:35 p.m. The things that are included here that are not included in the total hours of instruction are 30-minute lunch periods. I know that at the grade schools, at the elementary, tends to be those 30-minute lunch periods. Sometimes at the high school, middle school, they turn them into their periods of day, which may end up being 42, 44 minutes, somewhere like that. And so those aren't included in there. Here's some considerations we always take into consideration when selecting a calendar. First of all, we have 2 union contracts that we have to carefully follow, and there are some things written within those contracts for certain days to be used in a certain manner, so we take that into consideration. There are these transparency rules. The second bullet here is no calendar may reduce the number of hours scheduled for the coming year below the number of hours from the previous year. So we tend to look backwards. It doesn't mean you can't make an adjustment, but you need a special board resolution to do that. The other cooperation rules that come in there, we have to have communication with our local career center, with our educational service center. And while all the districts in the county don't have exactly identical schedules, we try really hard to coordinate that as best we can. And so we've had those conversations. Just to be known that let December 10th be our meeting, 30-day prior notice for a public hearing. We'll approve final recommendations at our January meeting for the calendar coming up for 2019-2020. I am looking at currently a 2-year opportunity, and so we're having those extended conversations, and we may find ourselves, looking out 2 years in advance. We did this year. I know this is awfully small. I put it at your tables. We started out with 5 schedules. It ran up to 7 schedules. It got reduced back to basically 2 schedules. And so these are ones that we're bringing to you tonight for consideration. I know this is awfully hard to see, so maybe I'll fast forward just a little bit, and then I'll tell you what the differences really are. So here's a comparison. This is our current year. This is option 1, and this is option 2. The biggest differences between the 2 options is really the start date and end date. The times and things in the middle are really pretty consistent, but I can back up and share those with you. So this year, teachers started on the 13th, students started on the 16th. Option 1, teachers start on the 16th, students don't start till the 21st. All right, option 2, which aligns a little bit more to some of the county schools, staying very similar to what we had this year. Teachers would start on the 12th, students would start on the 15th. Okay, so those are the start times for each. They both share 2 parent-teacher conference days. Both calendars have 3 days for Thanksgiving. Both have 2 full weeks for winter break, 1 week at spring break. In-service days, we continue to try to maximize those to the best of our ability within the contract that we have. And so this year we had 4. We're looking at 3 next year, and maybe bringing back these 1-hour in-services every month throughout the school year, which would be the equivalent of a day and a half. The only early dismissal we have that's still on our calendar is that on the last day of school, we like to send them out early on a 2-hour early release. And I think the teachers are pretty thankful for that. And so that's why you see that there. We have no late starts. Total student days have remained the same, and the hours of instruction have remained the same. So if I go back and you look at your calendars, again, I can't really toggle between the 2, but option 1, you'll notice this is our traditional start week. We're not starting there. We're actually starting basically almost a week later. All right, it's almost a week later. We're trying to end, contractually, we're trying to end the semester. We really try hard to, especially for our secondary folks, we try to match semesters as best we can. If you have the first semester be 81 days and the second semester be 94 days, it may not make a big difference at the elementary level, but at the secondary level, when you're taking a semester class and you have 10 fewer days to teach the same information, you'll always find that second semester will have a few more days because we always have inclement weather, which tends to come more so in the second semester. Plus, we also have testing. We have about 5 days of testing, minimal, in that second semester. So to have a little heavier second semester is okay, but just not out of balance. You'll notice down here, we have our 3 days at Thanksgiving. Our parent-teacher conferences, it would be interesting to relook at those, but those are in contract currently, and so we don't have a lot of flexibility related to that. When you come down here into Christmas, the winter break, we're looking at 2 weeks down there. Let me see if I can get my cursor to get out of that section. Whoops. It's going to hang out down there, but it'll be a traditional time period there. Martin Luther King Day is in there. One of the things in our contract that we continue to have to follow and we try to play with a little bit is at the end of a semester, we have a contract that says there must be a teacher workday there. So wherever I end it, I have to have a day off for students and a day for teachers to work. You'll see spring break in both schedules is really right around the same time. Sometimes we tried to stay in the last week in March, but in both calendars, with Good Friday being here on the 10th and Easter Sunday being on the 12th, it just made sense to kind of move that whole spring break over that time period. And we did that. There is a difference between this calendar and option 2, and that is Monday after Easter. To try to squeeze the days in appropriately, we had to forego the 13th as a day off. And then it really squeezed us down here to make the last day of school after Memorial Day and then the teacher work day on that Friday, so they didn't come in June. If you look at calendar 2, again, we're starting a little earlier, but when you start a little bit earlier, you can end a little bit earlier. I can add back in that day here after Easter, all right? And I was able to get a little bit more creative down here, which I would be, some folks might like to be done here and have this little extra time, but because the semester ended here, I can make the 3rd as a teacher work day. And that would be a day when students wouldn't be in session, all right? That would mean, though, that teachers would have basically a full 2 weeks, but they'd be coming back in on the Friday to work to meet their contractual obligation. Other than that, those are really your 2 calendar options. I will say we played with an option to start after Labor Day, and it was an interesting option. I see lots of people going, sounds really good. It always sounds really good before Labor Day. And then once you get to the end of the year, you're like, are we done yet? I will say that the Labor Day option, it started, of course, the Tuesday after Labor Day, but it ended really the first full week into June. So there's give and take on both ends of that. And some folks who have taught long enough remember us always going into June. The only challenge to that calendar, although we had some level of interest there, the challenge is your surrounding districts in the Knox County Career Center haven't gone to that level. I mean, if they would truly start on the 15th and we wouldn't start till September 3rd or 4th, I mean, they would be in school 15 days longer. And we have almost 200 students who attend the Career Center. Not to mention that now that we have so many College Credit Plus kiddos at the high school level, I mean, colleges start in August and they're usually done. They're going to be done first or second week in May. And so it kind of puts us a little bit out of alignment there. Any questions on the calendars?
I have a question regarding the option 1. I'm sorry, did somebody else have a question first?
No.
Am I reading this correctly, that the end of the grading period would be, you'd come back in January, have 1 week, and then it would be the end of the grading period? So maybe finals would be that week?
Generally, what the high school likes to do is they'll have their finals probably before the 20th, before the break, and then they'll come back.
It didn't make sense to come back and have.
Yeah, no. They would generally do their finals there. They would come back for any makeups and then whatever material they felt they needed to finish up with. But if we would have stopped right there, it would have really offset the semester offerings, even by 5 more days. And so that's why that goes that 1 week in. But your observation is correct, that we wouldn't take 2 weeks off and come back and just do finals. That doesn't work real well, I don't think.
Just as a quick comment, of the 3rd of April, when we have that long week and then the Monday off, the comment of, you talk about high school exams, April is full of state exams or state tests, air tests for us as well.
That's right.
So when you break that up, we're always wondering where that spring break is going to be for the rest of us. So when you do a long week off and then a Monday off, we never know where we we are going to be, because sometimes we come back on a Tuesday after being off for over a week and have to take a test.
Yeah.
So that's hard on the elementary stuff.
We did carefully look at that as well. There are 2 windows for all of us. ELA has a 3-week window and math has a 3-week window. The windows start, and Kathy's really our expert in this area, the 3-week window starts right around here, like March 21st. And so if we decide that we're going to do ELA for this 3-week window, we have 3 weeks, or we have a couple weeks prior to going that we could get the ELA in, all right? And then we come back, and then we have till when, Kathy?
It's usually this year, like math and science or social studies go to the first part of May.
Yeah, it's
May
over
1, but then we run into 5th grade camp and we kind of have to work.
It's usually over that,
Is it usually
that
over?
week before we ever go to camp. It's
Yeah.
over that
But
last
it's
week.
usually that first week of May is when the window ends, that we can
Yeah.
get ahead of it, so.
So it's usually.
And you do have 3 weeks. Breaks don't count in your block of time. So let's just say that it started here on the 20, I guess it's the 23rd. This would be 1 week, this would be 2 weeks. You would have all the way through the 17th, right, to do the ELA. And then, of course, they stagger the times for the others. Irregardless, wherever you put that, you're going to find yourself in a challenging situation. If you try to move it up into here, then you've lost your week at the front end of the conversation. And then you've got to come back and we've got to have conversations about what are we doing over the Easter, Good Friday time frame. And I think you're finding most districts are wanting to try to tackle this in here. I don't think you'd find spring break, those rare occasions where spring break and Easter and Good Friday get late into April, we probably wouldn't keep moving it back. But this is kind of sitting in that first week in April. Any other questions by the board?
So what's the next step then? The teachers will vote on this?
Well, there's no voting. They get a chance to look at it, and they have had a chance to look at it. And we'll continue to take any of your comments relative to you. I think I shared with you where we started with 5 calendars before, and as we met with MVEA, we narrowed it down to a few more finite choices. These were 2 of the more primary choices with some additional tweaking. Is there more tweaking that could go in here? I mean, certainly a day here or there. The challenge, though, is every time you take a day out in there, I've got to make it up somewhere else because I got to keep to the 175. And therein lies kind of the challenge.
Just FYI, the dates for March and the color coding aren't matching up, so.
Aren't they matching?
No, they don't match.
No, you're right. You're right. I'll have to double check. I have so many versions of these things. Actually, I think the last one was the final because I got mixed up in where they were. So are they that way on your sheet there too?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I like is the start of 4 nice weeks instead of 9 weeks.
Oh, did it say nice?
Nice.
Is that on the second one? I don't see that one.
I mean, I think that's clever.
In March, yeah.
I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but it was a
Right.
spelling error.
I do hope that'll be nice weeks. But.
All right, so we'll certainly have some additional conversations. If you have any other things to add, you kind of know the things that we're considering relative to this, and I'll certainly be talking with Darcy and OPSI in the meantime as we just try to iron some of these things out. I'll share where our 2 options are right now relative to the other superintendents in the area. I would venture to say that all of the other ones are starting more closely aligned with calendar 2, which is the earlier option. And I would say that was the least desirable among the group that I met with.
Well, and I'm kind of surprised starting after Labor Day and you only go 1 week into June. Isn't that what you said, or did I miss it?
Yeah.
Again, the only thing I would say that makes that
Is because of the.
It's because of all the
county
other schools and the Career Center.
I
If the
understand.
Career Center ever said they wanted to do it, then we could, I think Darcy was the one, I'm putting you on the spot, Darcy. Darcy liked that. She liked the after Labor Day, and she remembers when we went to school till June 6th. I mean,
I like the week.
Well, it just seems like you're starting so much later, and yet you're only going a week longer, so. Yeah.
A week and a half, you have to,
yeah, it's about a week and a half, and then you kind of play with some days in the middle and so on and so forth.
Well,
So,
not according to option 1, but option 2.
You're only a week.
yeah. Okay.
Right.
Go back to the regular agenda.
It just seems,
Yeah, I know.
Item number 4, this is one that may take a little bit of discussion. So we've had a work session related to this particular resolution. Our work session revolved around levies and finances, if you recall, back in September. And we have a pretty significant thing that comes to us at the end of December of 2019. And that is the bond that has been issued 25 years ago to build the middle school finally comes due. And so what we had talked about is, do we capture an opportunity to share with our community that we need to continue to have the resources to do what we're talking about here in all our other buildings, for renovations, for repairs, and could we take an opportunity to say, you know what, we don't want you to pay any more than you have paid generally in the last 25 years, or certainly within last year. If you would continue to pay what you've been paying, it would provide us additional revenues to update and to do some work on these buildings. So the way we wanted to try to structure this was as almost like it was a zero tax increase. No increase to taxpayers, just would you be willing to pay what you've been paying? There are 2 mechanisms from which to do that. The first is to take our current PI levy and to replace it with this new PI levy, to make it continuing, and then inside that language, it would say an increase because we're actually increasing the one we replace, but we're really not making taxpayers pay any more than they did in the previous years. The language in that can be kind of tricky and confusing because when you see the word increase, you think of increase. When the fact of the matter is we're trying to keep it exactly what you paid this year, last year, and the year before. Okay? The other way you could make that resolution is we could just ask for an additional PI levy equal to the amount that this bond had been bringing in to taxpayers. So now it is a new one, but it's a new one that brings in only what we were already collecting the past 25 years. Easier to explain, but sometimes you look at it and says, well, that's a new levy. They got a new levy on the ballot. And so we have to very, I guess, with wisdom and thought, decide which one of those 2 is the better as far as putting it on the May ballot. Again, the idea is pretty simple. We don't want to increase taxes. We want to continue to pay what we've been paying for quite some time. But when that bond comes off in December of 2019, will you continue to pay what you've been paying? It will probably bring in close to $700,000 a year, right, is what we're saying, that we could then target towards renovations, updating facilities, so on and so forth. That may still be part of our big facility master plan that we've been working on. I mean, we've been going around to each one of the elementaries, taking a look. We did a thought exchange. We'll be bringing you that information pretty soon about our facilities. Obviously, just, a small, it's not a small amount, but an amount like that isn't going to build you anything new. And we may still have to look at some other opportunities in that regard if that's the direction the board wants to go. But I can tell you $700,000 could go a long way in starting to nitpick away at some of the bigger items that we have in the district. So in a sense, that's what lies before us. The time constraints that lie before us is we have to decide which direction we'd like to choose from a resolution standpoint. This would be our opportunity to approve one. we have to have one more reading prior to a filing deadline of February 3rd?
6th.
February 6th. So there is a timing element here, and that's why we need to have the conversation that we're having tonight.
I have a question. I think I know the answer, but just would like to make sure. On the renewal replacement, it's an additional 0.9 mils. For the new levy, it's 1.25. Can you explain?
And you're wondering why the difference. So on the replacement language, I'll pull it up here so you can see it. On the replacement levy, gets into really more of the financial part here. So the current PI levy was voted in at 2 mils. That was voted in some time ago, so over time, that millage decreases, right? When you replace a levy, you take it back.
Because we asked for a dollar amount, right?
Yeah, you replace it, you take it back to its original amount.
Dollar amount.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why you're seeing a difference between 0.9 and 1.25. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You want to help? Can you help explain it?
So the 0.9 goes back to when it was originally.
It gets added on. If you look, it says that it'll constitute, the whole levy will then be a 2.9 mil tax.
So we go back to the original 2, and then we add 0.9, and that will bring us in the same amount that we had been
The
collecting.
amount that we already have, plus the additional $700 and some thousand.
So is the 1.25 then, it's still the same amount, the
Yes.
700,000?
Yes. And
I'm just thinking voters will think that that's more because.
Well,
certainly
obviously, you
appears to
wouldn't
be.
see 2 resolutions on the ballot, but, and
But in
I,
explaining it, you would want to, they would know what the millage is, right?
right, it'll be 2.9 mils, but that'll be both of them together.
Right, I understand
Instead
that,
of
but.
one separate one for 1.25, and the other one remains, actually, it's now down around, I don't have the millage in front of me, what they're collecting now, but it's lower because of the rollback. Because these levies are not dollar amount levies, like our emergency levies are dollar amount levies, these are millage levies. And once the board decides which one they want, I take it to the board of, or to the auditor's office, and she'll tell us how much that generates. So the next,
So you're estimating as to what?
these are estimates and, with her help. And, the next, resolution that you would approve is not a second reading of this one, it's a different resolution that says, now we know what the dollar amount is, now we're ready to act, and then that one goes to the Board of Elections. And then they send us the
Well,
language.
that was my only concern, that.
yeah.
Right. And that's why it's hard to make the decision which one, whether, as Bill said, whether we want to keep the one we have and just explain that we need to get it back up to the original dollar amount and then add some to it so that we can just have one. Or if we say, we'll leave that one alone and then just get a separate one. They're both continuing. So there's no renewals, there's no, which is my original concern, is that, remember before when we used to have a renewal like every 10 minutes? Well, now we would have, neither one of those would need to be renewed.
Other board members, what are your thoughts?
If you recall, we added this at a special board meeting, this levy timeline. I think it's always important to see it. So this, we have our levies up top, and these are the chances we have to renew levies. So there's May of 19, that's a spring, then there's November of 19, there's May of 2020, November of 2020. And we've really reduced ourselves from having, I believe, when I arrived, we had like 5 levies.
Yeah.
We were always going
On the
to
ballot.
on the ballot. We've now combined on 2 different occasions, 2 emergency operating levies to be singular. And then we took the PI levy and we made it continuing. So we're now down to just really 2 voted on levy renewals. And it's this one here. And you'll notice the last chance we had to renew that was in 2020. All right. And then the last chance to renew the other combination is out here at 2022. So those are out there just a little bit, just for a renewal standpoint. This was the one that if we have an opportunity to replace, and we believed This made the most sense because that comes off the ballot in December of 2019.
And we're only allowed to do this particular item could only be on the ballot once in a calendar year. So if it did not pass, then this one wouldn't be back on. Now, we'll still have what we have now. We wouldn't lose anything. And it remains continuing as well. So it's not like it goes back to a 5-year or anything like that,
So if you go back to this piece, I don't know what the ballot language would look like, but the board declares that it is necessary to replace in its entirety the school district's existing 2 mil, I won't even try that one, Valerum property tax outside the 10 mil limitation approved by voters at an election November of 2013 for the purposes of general permanent improvements, and to increase that tax by 0.9 mils to constitute 2.9 mils for that purpose. So in this case, there's actually a replacement and an increase of 0.9 mils. But that replacement and increase won't affect taxpayers any more than what they paid this previous year or, the years, unless of course the valuation of your houses rise and those kind of things, and we can't, control those kinds of things. So that's the first one. So the words replace and increase are the two that you got to kind of be cognizant of. Am I saying that okay? She hasn't kicked me yet. And then, of course, the other ballot language is much simpler, and it declares the necessity to levy an additional 1.25 million out of Valerum property tax outside the 10 limit for general improvements and so on for a continuing period of time.
And the general and permanent improvement words are very important because at one time, districts and even our district, when they passed permanent improvement levies, they passed them for specific things. Back in the day, a lot of them did it for technology. And then, the community was like, oh yeah, we need technology, and they passed it. But then if a boiler broke down, you couldn't use it for that. And the auditors check that. They come and get the language, and they say, what'd you spend it on? So this is the broadest language that there is, and permanent improvement actually means things that last for 5 years or more. So that gives us a lot of leeway as far as things that we need to do in our buildings and so forth.
And just to share what we generally use our PI money for, primarily it's for transportation. Buses are in the 80 plus thousands of dollars. We try to keep a good rotation of that. So we minimally will buy 2 buses a year. Technology is included in there, and you all know the level of which we've stepped into that world, and everybody has. And then curriculum, those 3 items, you can find yourself, right into your PI, not to mention, oh, by the way, we've got to upkeep and maintain buildings. So generally, we pick things, prioritize things that we have to do. The roof that you see in here right now was part of a PI project done last year that the health department said we had to do, and so we did it. Underneath here is that foamy snow stuff, and so they would kick balls up in there, and it would fall down like snow. Well, it can't get on your food, and so those kinds of things come under your PI piece. We took almost $200,000 of our PI for a 5-year period of time to pay for the new rooftop units at the high school, where we had 21 of them. And that was really expensive. So this money goes pretty quick in just what I would call operational kinds of things. Technology, curriculum, transportation, and our major repairs. This additional money would really certainly be very beneficial moving forward.
So tonight we have to make a recommendation to at least which approach we want to go to the auditor with, right?
We have to vote on it tonight.
Right.
And I will share what Judy shared with me earlier today. She certainly could share it, but I'll jump in. We felt pretty strongly one way when David Connolly came in. I mean, and he kind of said, sometimes it's hard to explain that. And we thought, replacement, and then kind of continue to come full circle on that. Maybe it is a hard thing to explain, a replace and an increase, but yeah, you just told me it's not going to increase my taxes. No, it's not going to increase your taxes from what you were paying in the previous years, but it says increase. And so you have to be really mindful of how you share it.
Well, additional 1.25 is an increase, so, I mean, I don't see that that's an issue.
Yeah, they both sound like more money.
Yeah.
But that's why we have to really do a really good job of talking about the bond. And I think that there's a really great story in the fact that this is the payoff of 25 years, a building that's 25 years old. And guess what happens after 25 years with the building? Now we have it paid off. It's like your car, you get it paid off and, the engine breaks or whatever. So, I mean, the community wants these buildings to stay nice and to be maintained. And so I think that's a really great story to say, at the end of the 25 years, we're thrilled to have that paid off, but now we have other things that we need to do, not just in that building, in all the buildings. So, and again, if it, I just think that we have a good story, but if it doesn't pass for whatever reason, we haven't lost anything other than, it would be disappointing. But the PI that we have is continuing and it wouldn't affect that, no matter which option we take here.
I would just, if you don't mind, may I ask the audience, anybody out there thinking they're confused about the language or what you might say to yourself, like when you go to vote for something like this?
Not to put you on the spot.
Help us, right?
I think it would be confusing, I think, to the public. I mean, that's just my viewpoint. I mean, everybody reads all of the fine language there really carefully. I know I do.
So which would be confusing?
I think we would want to do a lot of front loading to get that information out there. So it would be very easy to understand or get that front loading out there before they went to vote. So they did understand that it was the same amount of money that was out there to make it, less confusing. I think that would be very important to do so that it was less confusing. If we didn't do that, I think it would be more confusing.
Which do you think would be easier to make clear to people?
Say an increase or additional?
Replacement and increase or the additional? Those are our two options. And not to put, I mean, anybody can
Replacement
speak.
usually is the first thing read. Usually the first word is what people go with. When you say a new, then people go. Additional. Yeah.
Good point.
That was my concern.
It's usually the first word is what's,
Good point.
when you go with kids, it's the first word they read.
Very
It's the
good.
same thing. It'll stop me in my tracks, whatever the first word is. So that's my view.
And what you just said is exactly what many of us thought. Replacement with zero tax increase is a story. A zero tax increase with a new PI just comes across differently. And that's the challenge.
Hopefully they get that, but I think you're right with hearing the replacement first as opposed to seeing the word additional first.
Yeah. And somebody who, but it won't matter how much we front load some, or they won't get the information. But the first word that they read right there is important.
Very good point. Thank you. Anybody
Well,
else?
all have to be linked to the expiration of the bond. That's the key. So, and I think however we do it, postcards or however we decide to do the campaign, we'll have to have graphics on there that show, the bond comes to an end and the new levy picks up. And, I'm not an artist, but there are people who can do those kinds of things like the timeline that Bill had on there, which people can look at and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But the campaign is a big deal. And we don't take that lightly at all. That's important.
And we have had successes, with our levies.
The last 3 or 4?
Trust element, I think
Since
is there.
2013. It all passed nicely.
And when you said it wasn't a big deal if it didn't pass, it is really because it would be negative, you know.
No, I just mean it won't hurt
It
us
wouldn't affect
financially.
what we have.
Yes, we're not putting something
Yeah,
out
I
there
understand
that
that.
if it loses.
We could
know.
lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the long run, it does affect us financially because now we have these buildings that we have to be extremely creative in moving and borrowing to make sure that we have the money to maintain the buildings. So in the long run, it does drastically affect us.
Okay, I would entertain a motion then to, the board feels comfortable in making that decision.
I would move to go with the replaced option.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Beazle. Any further discussion? Now's the time to ask your question. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mrs. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann? Yes. Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, last thing I have as an item for information really is just, we have lots of things going on right now, and it might be time to, you don't have to decide necessarily tonight, but we might have to be looking at some board work sessions coming up, maybe not only to finalize some of the, this particular information, but some other initiatives that we have going on. Be looking at your calendars, and we may reach out to you relative to a work session. Especially related to the Education Gateway project and making sure that, you know, we're in the right position to continue to move forward with that.
So are you thinking December? Would have to be.
I would love to think of December here in the next couple weeks, but I know your calendars really are crazy. And it doesn't have to be a nighttime meeting. I mean, we can have just a very small set of items that we want to share about, and it could be a Saturday morning, you know, like the 20.
We've had lunch meetings.
Could be a lunch meeting as well. But again, it might be kind of a culminating event where we can really have some final discussions on a few things so that we can move forward.
May I just share when we're thinking of dates? I'm probably going to be out of town, probably the 19th. I don't know, is it possible to do anything before the 19th if you want it in December? Does anyone else have conflicts?
All these things that pop up, but how flexible are we to have the lunch type meetings?
I'm flexible enough. I guess it really, Jody, it's a little tougher for Jody, probably for Jody and for you, Steve, are a little more
I
challenging.
mean, if we're talking lunch, if we start at like 10 or 11, then I can make that.
Oh, you're talking about brunch?
Okay, brunch. Let's do a brunch, Steve, exactly. Yeah.
Kids eat lunch at 10:30.
Some of them.
I know.
Now I can make that work. I mean, Friday, I can make any time work on Friday,
Okay.
The 14th.
What about
We
the
could do-
14th? Maybe that would be.
which would be this Friday.
Okay.
Oh.
I had family plans. If I could change
I
it.
was going to be out of town starting the 19th.
Well, what about Jody's timeline with the 10:30 or 11? Start Monday, Tuesday?
Are later times like 4:30? Or how's your work day?
I'm in class 12:30 to 3:30.
How difficult would it be to change?
I can change it,
Are you sure?
yeah.
Because that seems to make more sense.
What's that?
A Friday,
The 14th.
Friday the 14th. What time? You're good all day. So it doesn't need to be brunch, Steve. It could be lunch.
Or if earlier in the day works better for Mary, we could do
Yes,
earlier
it
in the
would.
day.
If we could do it earlier,
That be
it would work
Steve's
better for
schedule
me.
that we would
Fine
be
as well.
Working with.
Steve, you decide.
Steve, could we do breakfast instead of brunch?
We will make it work.
And then maybe that would alleviate some
Why don't you
issues for
suggest
Mary.
a time since it's your work schedule that we're working with?
I have a I have a meeting at 11 that I can't change, so if we start early on Friday morning, that would be fine.
8:30?
That would be great.
30, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Do we need a motion and
We
vote on?
do. We probably
I
should.
would entertain a motion then to
I
approve
move that we have the meeting on Friday, the 14th at 8:30 at the boardroom.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And any questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Sorry to take that time, but it's the only time we can all get together.
And the rest of the board agendas really goes pretty quick here. So under superintendent's information, recommended items for board approval, I have a number of bylaws and policies. These are policies that Neola recommends, their lawyer team relative to legislation. And, generally we accept what they bring to us. So those are there for your consideration. This is our second reading of those. And then item 2 is an organizational meeting and a regular meeting for January of 2019. I shared those with you in the items for information. It would set our organizational meeting on January 14th at 5:30 at Twin Oak, with the regular board meeting commencing then at 6 o'clock. Those 2 items for your approval.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion then to put those items on the floor, and then we can discuss if you have questions.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Fiesel. Are there questions, anything about the policies that you
I
have?
have questions about 20 of them.
Go ahead.
Well, we'll be here a little while.
Just kidding, little humor.
Any other questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
We've pulled out a separate item here. It's the appointment to the Knox County Joint Vocational School District Board of Education. I have a motion to appoint Dr. Bennett to that board.
So moved.
Okay,
Second?
we have a second.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
I'll abstain. Okay, thank you.
And then finally, under the superintendent's report, we have item number 4, motion to appoint President Pro Tem for our organizational meeting on the 14th.
I make a motion to appoint Dr. Bennett.
Second.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
I'll abstain. Okay.
Okay,
Up to my report.
we're on to curriculum and
Okay.
instruction. Go ahead.
If you looked at the success, the first 2 items I thought were pretty interesting about the agriculture and how the focus is on project-based lessons and how cutting-edge fields like data science, biotechnology, robotics, and genetics. I mean, when we think of agriculture, we usually think of farming, but today that's no longer the case. Now it actually includes a much broader area. And the ag teachers who have expanded in this direction have doubled the number of students over the past 10 years, and that's the example they give. One of the projects that they worked on was called Chicken Challenge, and the challenge was for the students to come up with a way to develop the best chickens in the least amount of time so that they could get them to market as quickly as possible. So the students were really connecting with those project-based examples. The second article is Lorraine City Schools, and it's the Grateful Peoples Project, which I had never heard of before. It was actually started in New York in 2016. And now there are 4,200 students across 8 cities that are involved. And essentially, the example that they gave is a 5th grade classroom, and it's the first Ohio school to sign on to this New York-based program. And it begins with a question: creating happiness is life's greatest art. What if we were taught to practice that skill at a younger age? And that's exactly what they're trying to do, to practice gratitude in school and through writing projects and so forth. So I thought that was something that we might even be interested in doing. I know we're into character development, so that's just one aspect of it. But what I really wanted to share was we had a SALT meeting, and SALT stands for Student Achievement Leadership Team, and that was a meeting at OSBA a week ago tonight for almost 3 hours. And we learned, one of the things that was brought to our attention was the Character Lab, and I sent that to you, so you've got and Character Lab was developed by Angela Duckworth, who's a scientist, and she collaborates with 2 other professors at Penn, University of Pennsylvania. And it was founded in 2013, and their vision is intelligence plus character. That's the goal of true education, and that's a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. And they point out that culture is like a garden. It's going to grow regardless, so hopefully we're tending it and trying to be intentional about the values that we're teaching and so forth. Character is not a thing, but it's many character. Character encompasses strengths of heart, mind, and will. And if you look at, go on down to the, okay, I think you're, maybe you're not on the same link that I was on. There's About Character Lab. Is that where you research?
This is a video.
Anyway, OSBA, if we were interested in participating, there's no charge. There's no charge to OSBA. There's no charge to the school district. And they will come in and do a survey of your students to help you. And I thought I brought that. I thought I could just pass around the example that was shared at OSBA of a research study that they did about the students. So you would determine what questions you were interested in. And the whole purpose is to share the research. It's very difficult to get research on character development. It would take years to develop that, but in 2016, January of 2018, they had 12,466 students who participated in the students. That's a tremendous database. If you're doing research, that's a good research pool. So from that, they learned a lot of interesting things about relationships and the importance of mentoring, how many hours students are on social media. The average, I think, was 3 hours per day. So it just provides you with a lot of good information about your students, and they'll come in and do that survey. I think it's they run 3 surveys. They're 30 minutes, and then they provide you with all the data, and then they have the data that's part of their pool. So, we may have how many students, maybe 100 participate, but if they have schools all over the nation participating, that's how they end up with the 12,000. So, if you'd like to see that.
Our nephew, Chad Spurgeon, who's a Mount Vernon graduate, did a year with Angela Duckworth. Just working on research and data, and he was funded by a grant. But
she's an amazing woman. She's done some tremendous things. I think OSB is trying to get her to come to the conference next fall to speak. But Kathy McFarland, our deputy director, was the one who, she was just so excited about it. This is an opportunity, for us to participate. And I know we're all very concerned about developing not just intelligence, but also character as well. So
a lot of her research, comes back to that grit.
Right. That's the part I was trying to get to, where it talks about grit was one of them, and I don't have them all written down, but.
Is she still based in Philadelphia?
Yes, she is. Working with the University of Philadelphia. There are 2 professors that are there.
Now, what age group would they survey?
This particular group, I thought, was Well, I was thinking it was 5th grade, but I think that's up to us to, you know, to determine what grade, you know, what research we want, but if you would like to look at that. So. But grit was one of the resilience, you know, all of the factors that we are trying to teach our students, but knowing how to do that, how do you teach it? And they're developing the research that would help teachers and administrators know where to begin. So I was excited about it, so I wanted to share that with you. Okay, no recommendations, so we're down to fiscal services.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any items for information at this time. The financial report is relatively routine. We ended the month of November with $8.4 million. Our spending, our total revenue is at 43%, which is right where it should be, and our total spending is at 42.6%, also right where it should be. So based on our projections and our cash flow, we are right on target at this point in time. Our, I know you remember last month when I was bragging about our investments, we didn't have any investments mature this month, we had a small one. So our investments only went up by a couple of $1,000 this time, but Mr. Gruber, who will be coming to a meeting to talk to us from Meter Investments, assures me we have two securities maturing in December, so that'll pop back up again. But still, we're at almost $94,000, and not even halfway through the school year yet, so we're happy about that. I don't have anything else in the actual financial report. We have donations. Two of them to Twin Oak, one from Walmart for $25, Blue Ribbon Crafts, one to Twin Oak from the Twin Oak PTO, $250 for the use of the Memorial Theater dining room for their holiday program, one to the Twin Oak Music Department from the Foundation Park Conservancy of $150, one to Mount Vernon High School Art Department from Deanna Badger. She donated a rolling metal shelf cart for ceramics projects, and one to Dan Emmett, an anonymous one, for clothing for students valued at $1,035, which we already heard about tonight. Wonderful. So, if anyone has any questions, or do a motion first.
I would just point out for the audience, when it said 2019, it's fiscal year 2019, so everybody knows that. Just want to make sure. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those finance items.
I'll make the
Thank you,
motion.
Mrs. Fiesel. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Bullock. Were there any questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mrs. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann? Yes.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Legislative liaison report.
Yes, thank you. On the second link, the first one is a little bit earlier from November, but the second one, the facts in the flash, there's just two items that I'd like to highlight, and those are the bills that have gone to the governor for signature. One is HB 338. The bill qualifies licensed chiropractors and medical professionals listed on the National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners to perform physicals for school bus drivers. And then the more important one for everyone is HB 491, which was sent to the governor for his signature. It extends the high school graduation alternative pathways to the classes of 2019 and 2020. There were, however, some changes made for the alternative pathways for 2020, including they may not use the attendance in 12th grade as a condition to graduate. 2018 and 19, 93% attendance is required in 12th grade. Second, 2020, you must have a grade point average of 2.5 for all 11th and 12th grades instead of just the 12th grade. Third, each student completes a capstone project designed as a culmination of the student's high school experience. And finally, completion of 120 hours of work in a community service role or employment with guidance from the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation. The guidance must be issued by May 31st of 2019. So fortunately, our children who are in the pathways will be able to graduate, but some of the changes for 2020 need to be examined so that we make sure that our children are in line. Any questions? You can look at the other things on your, at your leisure, just bills that have been introduced.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and we have some facility requests.
We have 3 items for board approval tonight, 3 facility requests. The first is for the Highland basketball girls team. I did have to ask, well, why are we allowing Highland to come here, free of charge necessarily? But that's the name of their league, and they're all Mount Vernon girls who are participating. So that's what that's about. We also have 2 memorandums of understanding with the Country Court Senior Living and with St. Vincent de Paul School. In the event of emergency, we would provide transportation to assist them and to help keep them safe. So.
Okay, do I have a motion then, please, for the facility? Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Getzman. Were there any questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman? Yes. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
I do have 2 additional items in this section. I pulled them out separately as Dr. Bennett has this almost a leadership role in OSBA. Item 4 here, OSBA's 2019 membership dues. Mount Vernon City Schools has been a longstanding member of OSBA. And then we have the approval of our participation in the OSBA's Legal Assistance Fund, and that's for $250. Both we have done for a long period of time. Again, we pulled those simply because of a conflict of interest.
Okay, would entertain a motion then for the OSBA 2019 membership dues?
So moved.
Second.
I'm second.
Thank you, Mrs. Feasel. And that also includes the legal assistance fund. Okay,
That's all.
both of those.
Yeah, that's for both of them, okay. Mrs.
any-
Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
I'll abstain. Okay, and we are to, and motion does carry. Thank you. Student services. No items. Okay. And personnel.
Under personnel, we have just a few items. We do have no items for information, but items for board approval to accept the retirement of Gary Keller, CBI teacher at Mount Vernon High School, due the end of the school year. And item 2, we have some employment, mostly in the area of substitutes and/or supplemental positions and related extracurricular activities. So we have those 2 items for your approval.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those items as read. Motion. Mrs. Feasel, do I have a second?
Second?
I don't know who was.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Jody, I apologize.
You're fine, Mary. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Regola-Dye then second? Was she first?
Yes, she
was. Okay, any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, I think we made it to the end.
So under classified staff, we have no items for information at this time. Have 2 items for board approval. One is a transfer of a bus driver to a different route via someone who had to step away. And item 2 is a substitute employment.
Okay, our last item. Do I have a
I'll make a motion.
motion? Okay, Mrs. Getzman, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Getzman?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Feasel?
Yes.
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried. And you have no need of executive session.
No
is that
need of
correct?
executive session.
Okay, I would entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Are we adjourning? Wait a second. Are we adjourning since aren't we going to be touring? Or?
We're going to be touring.
Oh, we can adjourn.
So do we come back and adjourn, or do we
No,
adjourn?
we can adjourn first and then.
And the tour.
They're not going to take action. I mean,
We're not going to take any action.
Make a request first before we adjourn.
Okay.
Okay. So, at some future meeting, I would really like for us to highlight our dietary nutrition plans here in the district. When we toured the high school and we went through the high school, it kind of caught my attention when we were talking a little bit about the amount of food that our students get. I'd like to see it district-wide and just our overall plan, right? Not from a financial standpoint, but just how are we feeding our students this
Talking more
morning?
about quantity, right? Because we
Quantity.
feed the same amount to second graders as middle school.
Right? But we also have breakfast, right? And so forth. So we have a couple different programs, right? So I'd like to just understand the whole thing, right? And I say that just because just the tour opened my eyes to some things that were stated. And then secondly, I listened to a report on national news this morning of just a general framework about how we are providing nutrition to our students across the nation, for that matter, and the pros and the cons with it. So I thought, as a part of what we do, so I'd really appreciate it if we could emphasize that in some meeting.
Well, and I think I really would like to see the financial picture, just where we are, where we're going, where we've been. Just do a nice overview, maybe on the cafeteria. Would be good.
And I would be interested in knowing how the students have responded to the changes, because some of the things I've heard are that even though we're trying to push the good nutrition, that isn't necessarily what the students want to eat. But, so if they aren't eating anything then, or not as much, that's a concern.
That was basic crux of the article this morning, or the news thing this morning, was that there's a lot of waste.
Well, and then too, the fact that most of our elementary buildings do not have the capability to make fresh, right on the spot food. They're getting the warm, it's just be kept warm in the warmer trays.
You guys have here, I know, I've heard in other, not necessarily just ours, but other districts where they have like a share table. Like if there's a child that doesn't want something, you have share box. Do you guys do the share box? Okay.
Oh, great.
And that's, is this the cafeteria as well?
Yes.
So just to see how that transition works must be amazing.
Yeah.
We're satellite, so it comes in, and I can actually have some in the freezer. I can show you what some of the meals.
I mean, we saw it at the high school, how they prep it. And, yeah,
Right.
and then send it out.
So it's not as a matter of any, I'm not upset about anything. It's just like to be more knowledgeable. And
And are we doing the right thing? Are we providing enough to the fifth graders? And I said middle school because my grandson is middle school at fifth grade, but I meant kindergartners, first graders get the same amount of food as fifth graders, which, naturally they probably don't eat as much.
This might be one of those areas where I would step out and be a little bolder to say, if they would let us make those kinds of decisions. I mean, we're really restricted based on the National School Lunch Program, of which we receive over $1 million easily a year. And as you well know, they came down with all these, there's calorie counts, there's salt counts, they spell it right out. And if we want to receive those funds, unfortunately, we have to follow exactly their rules. And I wish they would just provide us the resources and let us make that decision. Because as we heard at a couple of our tours, kids are not getting enough food.
The older kids.
That's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
that's what jumped out at me.
The share boxes, the ones I've seen, and I've had a chance to be here some, as soon as something goes up, it's like, it's gone. It's like they're watching for someone to put something in the share box. That just tells you a little bit of something about how hungry our kids can be.
Well, maybe we need to be assertive and contact some legislators in or something, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe there, some changes need to be.
And our children, if they're coming to school hungry and we feed them breakfast and then the lunch isn't sufficient and then they have no other food during the day,
Right.
we expect them to pass a major test while they're very hungry.
Right.
Good things to think about. Thank you for caring, board. Okay, I would entertain a motion then to adjourn, unless there's something else. Anything else?
So moved.
Thank you. Second, Mrs. Beazle. Okay, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mrs. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mrs. Beagle?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann? Yes. Dr. Bennett?
Yes, motion carried, but we are going to be touring.